We've been running courses. There it is, Garden Wines with Harry Gillam, Millenbeck Shire Council Living and Learning Centre, and we used to plough our way through a book that big, and then you took it home because that was part of your payment. And then we started looking around at other things that we ought to teach people, and lo and behold I find that I've got a clothesline plum that I made in 1987, and the clothesline plum of course is the plum tree beside the clothesline. Not to be mucked up with the clothesline in those days when the children were younger, beside the sand pit. Or the plum tree that was outside the bedroom window. And we always knew when the fruit on that was ripe, because it didn't matter what time of the night it was, when the possums had finished, you'd hear plum, blink, 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 plop, which meant that it had reached the spout. And so within a week you'd be out there digging the stuff out. And I used to watch the birds staggering round the front, and I said to my wife, I said, I think we'd better learn to make wine. We did. And so we got into making fresh, and then we got into doing things like freezing the fruit. Very experimental, but all written down to sort of say in the later years, as I'm getting a bit older now, what we did. We did dried apricots in the middle of winter because you don't get fresh ones. So we tried the dried fruits. We did parsley because parsley wine goes very well with your summer stuff when you're sitting out under the tree and you've got your glass of this and your something else, and you've got the dryness of the area, and particularly the cold beets and the lettuces and the tomatoes and all that, and you really need to have a wine that's appropriate to it, and that is not great wine. That's all bullshit that they tell you about. This is great with a salad. They're only trying to get you to buy their stuff. So you need to make your own. And that's what this is all about. You notice here, you can eat it, you can drink it. Now, not everything you eat would you like to drink, but at the same time, it's a great challenge, isn't it? And that goes for grains, apart from the fruit and vegetables that you grow in your garden, all the various green things that I grow in pots around the place so that I can make parsley wine and so on and so forth. I made rose petal wine in 1989. I didn't repeat it, but those who want to know, those who know roses, I used the Paul Scarlet, because I learned very early in rose making wine, you use the big roses with the big petals. Otherwise, you're in big trouble. We tried apple juice, didn't come out too good. We tried an orange wine that was awfully sweet, and then we suddenly discovered that there were two kinds of oranges. There's the sweet orange and there's the Seville orange. And the Seville orange is used for making marmalade. And you know what marmalade tastes like. It's always got that little bite. But when you've got some of those in with the sweet ones, you've got yourself a real good sort of wine. And if you watch what you're doing and you make use of the correct sort of yeast, you can make a port, an orange port. And it goes down very well with the sweets on your table. We had to go barley wine. Barley wine was of interest to me because I wondered why. There's always been a fascinating thing. We were through England in about 80 or something like that, and we happened to be in that wonderful time when they're taking all the apples off the trees and they're pressing the cider down the back sort of thing, and you went in and there was a bloody big sign that said, you know, if you can read this, that's all right. You're not allowed to have any more than 2 pots of the local cider. And the governor, the bloke in charge of the place, can throw you out over there, of course. But the greatest throw out of the thing is to say, I'll have a pot of cider and I'll have a pot of beer. You're not going to bloody well drink a beer, mate. Out! And that set me thinking, what's the problem between those two? And of course, we realised that with the apple juice, it's a fruit. And where does your beer come from? Not from a fruit. No, it's a dried up sort of crinky old vegetable thing. Except nowadays, of course, you can get it in a can and it looks like thick syrup. So the education that you can get yourself into is chasing up these sort of projects. Can you do it? This is the project. To capture the colour, the smell and the taste of the base material. Now your base material is your choice. What do you want to bake? And somebody says, oh, I like some parsnip wine. Right, it's got to look like that, and of course parsnips are white. If you overcook them, tell me how you get rid of the white sludge, because nobody else can. But you mustn't overcook them, we learnt that. They smell like that, and they have a taste like that. And so that's what you're on about. You start off and you work out what your base material is, and the alcoholic beverage, of course, comes about because you put yeast and sugar with it. So it's not terribly technical. When it comes to extraction methods, terribly important in one sense. How can we extract things out? Well, how do you extract grape juice? Well, you put the poor little grapes in a thumping bloody grape machine that goes go-dunka, dunka, dunka, and people stand around with barrels and all the other things. Very delicate, this. Very delicate. Sometimes you'll find yourself boiling the product. Sometimes it will simmer. Sometimes you will mix certain things together while you're warming it up. There are other times when you put, like the lemon wine, we put the lemons in the bucket, then we put the water on top. And so the extraction methods are something that you need to write in your book so that you know exactly what you did the last time. And the other point to make to you is, where did you get the fruit from? And when your neighbour leans over the fence with a bucket, a rusty old bucket full of apricots that have got brown and black blurs all over them, tell him no. But my local fruiter down here for a while used to know when he had a turned into his cool garden thing out the back, and he'd have a box of black bananas. I'll ring Harry, because they're the ones, the black ones are the ones you make your best wine out of. Not the yellow ones. No, black ones. Good stuff. We have at our house, and you're going to find some of these things, the roadside plums, of course, is the country out in the roadside. The letterbox plum is, you know the answer already, that's where the postman puts the letters in. I look after the postman. I'm not on email, I employ a postman. And if he doesn't bring it, I don't know anything about it. So some of the names along here may be a little bit mysterious, but they belong around our house. At one stage, I used to be able to make 32 wines out of my quarter-acre block. Now, some of those are a duplex sort of thing. You can make this and this, and they're separate, and then you can blend them together, like most of our wines are blended nowadays anyway, to turn them into table wines, and that gave me another one. Then I used to hunt around the area to find out who had other things growing that I didn't have growing. And we used to have a wonderful tree out here in elderberry, a real original elderberry, because the house next door has been there since 1857, not last century, the one before that. And that's where we used to come out, pair of scissors, cut down the flowers concerned, and take them inside and really make them up to show people how they could be made. So if you want to browse through this and you find roadside plums and other descriptions of things, realise that they're personal, they're not out of a shop. You've got to buy oranges, but most of the other stuff you can grow yourself. Eau de Cologne mint, frightened the hell out of Muppet Seymour one year. I put one of those in and came home with the President's Trophy, because people hadn't got round to thinking that perhaps all these things could also be made into wine. And those of you who have ever tackled elderberry wine, if you go up around the goldfields, of course the elderberries are growing up there. They're on the way now, but you really need to wait a couple of months with all this dryness and so on. An elderberry wine, of course, is one of those famous English ones. You can drive along the avenues or the hedgerows sort of thing, going from small village to small village, and the stuff just hangs there. And you think, God, by the time I buy this in a bag down in Melbourne, they've added about 800% on it. But it still is a great wine. And one of the great stories of elderberry wine, of course, is arsenic and old lace. And those of you who watch television, the old black and white's fine, still looks good. Elderberry wine. What did the dear old ladies mix the arsenic in? Elderberry wine. So that tells you what you're heading towards if you make elderberry wine. And of course in the old days, when the Romans first got to England, the elderberries were there. Ever seen a photograph of a Roman soldier that didn't have black hair? They stuck it in their hair. So you can imagine what your insides are like. But elderberry wine is one of those lovely ones that when you start doing this, you start to realise that, hang on, some of these wines may take a couple of years to mature.